Hey, darlings. I thought I'd get on here and do the rest of this chapter. I got this maybe a queer angle, but when I do the Chromebook all the way up, we'll get too much light in here from that bay window back there. Y'all, look. I found this. I got this from Krista from Secret Yarnery a long time, months ago. Seta and I got one. We were playing some kind of game or something. I've been missing this for a month or more. I've been looking everywhere. You know where it was? In my pocketbook. Thanks to a quarter I dropped in there, I found my bracelet. Oh my gosh. You know, the Bible says about you got 100, I forget how it goes exactly, but about the lost sheep. You know, you might have 100, but if one goes missing, kind of don't worry about that other 99 and worry to death about that other one. Since I got plenty of bracelets and stuff. But they weren't from Krista, so, you know. Okay, I'm going to go back to maybe back to the last sentence or two that I read, I think. At first, Matthew suggested getting a homeboy, but I said no flat to that. They may be all right. I'm not saying they're not, but no London street Arabs for me. I said, give me a native born at least. There'll be a risk no matter who we get, but I'll feel easier in my mind and sleep sounder at night if we get a born Canadian. So in the end, we decided to ask Mrs. Spencer to pick us one out when she went over to get her little girl. We heard last week she was going, so we sent her word by Richard Spencer's folks at Carmody to bring us a smart, likely boy of about 10 or 11. We decided that would be the best age, old enough to be of some use in doing chores right off, and young enough to be trained up proper. We mean to give him a good home and schooling. We had a telegram from Mrs. Alexander Spencer today. The mailman brought it from the station saying they were coming on the 5:30 train tonight. So Matthew went to Bright River to meet him. Mrs. Spencer will drop him off there. Of course, she goes on to White Sands Station herself. Mrs. Rachel prided herself on always speaking her mind. She proceeded to speak it now, having adjusted her mental attitude to this amazing piece of news. Well, Marilla, I'll just tell you plain that I think you're doing a mighty foolish thing, a risky thing, that's what. You don't know what you're getting. You're bringing a strange child into your house and home, and you don't know a single thing about him, nor what his disposition is like, nor what sort of parents he had, nor how he's likely to turn out. Why, it was only last week I read in the paper how a man and his wife up west of the island took a boy out of an orphan asylum, and he set fire to the house at night. Set it on purpose, Marilla, and nearly burnt them to a crisp in their beds. And I know another case where an adopted boy used to suck the eggs. They couldn't break him of it. If you'd asked my advice in the matter, which you didn't do, Marilla, I'd have said for mercy's sake not to think of such a thing, that's what. This Job's comforting seemed neither to offend nor to alarm Marilla. This Job's, maybe. Neither to offend nor to alarm Marilla. She knitted steadily on. I don't deny there's something in what you say, Rachel. I've had some qualms myself, but Matthew was terrible set on it. I could see that, so I gave in. It's so seldom Matthew sets his mind on anything that when he does, I always feel it's my duty to give in. And Matthew and Marilla are brother and sister. I don't think they've told us that yet. So it kind of reminds me of me and my brother. Sets his mind on when he does. I always feel it's my duty to give in. And as for the risk, there's a risk in pretty near everything a body does in this world. There's risk in people's having children of their own if it comes to that. They don't always turn out well. And then Nova Scotia is right close to the island. It isn't as if we're getting him from England or the States. He can't be much different from ourselves. Well, I hope it'll turn out all right, said Mrs. Rachel in a tone that plainly indicated her painful doubts. Only don't say I didn't warn you if he burns Green Gables down or puts strychnine in the well. I heard of a case over in New Brunswick where an orphan asylum boy did that, and the whole family died in fearful agonies, only it was a girl in that instance. Well, we're not getting a girl, said Marilla, as if poisoning whales were a purely feminine accomplishment, and not to be dreaded in the case of a boy. I'd never dream of taking a girl to bring up. I wonder at Mrs. Alexander Spencer for doing it, but there, she wouldn't shrink from adopting a whole orphan asylum if she took it into her head. Mrs. Rachel would have liked to stay until Matthew came home with his imported orphan, but reflecting that it would be a good 2 hours at least before his arrival, she concluded to go up the road to Robert Bell's and tell the news. It would certainly make a sensation second to none, and Mrs. Rachel dearly loved to make a sensation. So she took herself away, somewhat to Marilla's relief, for the latter felt her doubts and fears reviving under the influence of Mrs. Rachel's pessimism. Well, of all things that ever were or will be, ejaculated Mrs. Rachel when she was safely out in the lane, it does really seem as if I must be dreaming. Well, I'm sorry for that poor young one, and no mistake. Matthew and Marilla don't know anything about children, and they'll expect him to be wiser and steadier than his own grandfather, if so be's he's ever had a grandfather, which is doubtful. It seems uncanny to think of a child at Green Gables somehow. There's never been one there, for Matthew and Marilla were grown up when the new house was built, if they ever were children, which is hard to believe when one looks at them. I wouldn't be in that orphan's shoes for anything. My, but I pity him, that's what. So said Mrs. Rachel to the wild rose bushes out of the fullness of her heart. But if she could have seen the child who was waiting patiently at the Bright River station, at that very moment her pity would have been still deeper and more profound. That's the end of chapter 1. Next chapter is called Matthew Cuthbert is Surprised. So, if you know the story, you know what the surprise is. And even if you don't, I imagine you could probably just about figure it out. Okay, guys, I've got about 5 whips on my lap here. A bunch stacked up beside me. Whole mountain over here. Oh, mercy me. And I've already cranked up some more hats today. So I probably about got my 20. If I don't. And you know, Madonna asked me if I was going to wash these hats, because you know I wear them sometimes or just kind of try them on before I put them in the pile. I got to thinking about having to hand wash all those hats, and I think I'm gonna bag them up and put them in the freezer. I know that's what you do to get rid of cooties, so it should kill. And I don't have cooties that I'm aware of. I'm sure I'd be scratching if I did. So that's what I'm gonna do. The hats in the freezer. I about ain't got nothing in there but a roast that I need to stick in the Instapot. Well, I will talk to you guys later. Might even come on live late tonight. You never know. I'll be right here in this chair, though, with my feet up. Love y'all. Talk to you later, Gators. Bye bye. Be sweet. Don't be ugly.